Hey guys, welcome to The Kitchen Think, a channel where we talk about interesting scientific discoveries in the field of medicine, health, and fitness. And today's video is a quite exciting one. It's a video that ties in two topics that we're really passionate about, biology and fitness. And as you guys know, we are not only biologists, but we also are martial artists, gym owners, and we're really passionate about fitness. And in this video, we're going to talk about how routine fitness improves your immune health, and specifically how that relates to COVID-19. So it should be a very exciting video, guys. If you are enjoying the videos, if you're enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe to it, and let's begin. Many scientific papers have shown a direct relationship between routine exercising and improved immune health. Now, before we get into the science behind these findings, let's get some kind of terminologies out of the way. When scientists look at exercising, they call this moderate intensity workouts. So what does that mean? Well, they look at several factors. The first thing that they look at is the frequency, how often during the week you work out. And generally, moderate training, which is the beneficial training that we're talking about today, is somewhere 3 to 5 times a week. The second thing that they look at is the amount of oxygen or the amount of energy expenditure that you're using during your workout. Now, this is a little bit more difficult to talk about, but let's kind of dive into it a little bit. As you guys know, when you train, you use oxygen to fuel the energy that you need for the training to happen. So if let's say you're doing something a little bit more intensive, you're breathing a little bit heavier because you need more oxygen to sustain that activity. So what scientists look at is how much of your maximum oxygen consumption are you using at any given time. That's basically what they look at. And what they call moderate intensity training is using about 70% or less of your maximum oxygen. That's really kind of the definition. Now, if let's say you're using something that's higher than 70% of your maximum oxygen consumption, so you're going to do something a bit more intensive, the second thing they look at is the duration. And if you are doing something that's a little bit heavier, intensive, a little more intensive than what I described previously, then the duration should probably be no more than 45 minutes, maybe an hour. That's kind of the definition. So why am I mentioning all these things to you? Because as regular people, our exercises fall within these categories, right? Unless we're professional athletes that routinely train for 6 hours a day, most of our exercising is about an hour, even less long a day, and usually it's somewhere like 3 to 5 days a week, hopefully. Or if you think about, like, for example, you're going for a run, or you do a martial arts class, or you do a little bit of dancing, or you take a yoga class, or you do some weightlifting, or even if you do something like high intensity interval training, but for a short duration of time, generally that is what scientists consider to be moderate intensity workouts. And those are the beneficial type of exercises that have a huge benefit to your immune health. So now that we got that terminology out of the way, let's talk about that relationship between fitness and your immune health. So the first relationship between routine training or routine working out and improved immune health comes from the fact that routine training improves or increases the circulation of immune components within your blood, within your organism, within your body. So what does that mean? Well, if you guys remember from other videos, and if you don't, I'm going to remind you a little bit. There are certain components, certain cellular components of the immune system, such as, for example, cytotoxic T cells, macrophages, neutrophils, whose job is to travel through your body, find foreign organisms, and attack them and destroy them. Therefore, you won't get sick, or if you do get sick, you'll recover very, very quickly. Now, by exercising, you are increasing the amount of these cells that circulate through your body at a given time. So what happens is, let's say if there was a foreign bacteria or virus that entered your body, and already these immune cells are circulating through your system, they immediately will recognize it, bind it, and kill it. And therefore, you won't get sick. And if you will recover very, very quickly. Versus if you were not working out, these immune components will almost like sit idle and do nothing, and it will take them longer to get mobilized and recruited to fight off this infection. So that's kind of one benefit. Very similarly, not just the immune cells that get recruited when you are exercising, but also antibodies and something called naive B cells. Now, again, if you remember from our previous videos, antibodies, their job is to bind to let's say, certain foreign organisms and neutralize them so they cannot infect your cells, and then eventually they're marked for destruction. They get destroyed by your cells. Naive B cells are precursors to mature B cells, known as plasma cells, that produce more antibodies. So basically what happens is, by constantly routinely exercising, you're increasing the circulation of already existing antibodies within your system, and also these naive B cells that are circling through your body and looking for these foreign entities, for these microorganisms that are entering your body. And if they find them, they immediately bind them, start producing more antibodies, and immediately activate the immune response to destroy these pathogens, or these bad guys, so to speak. So again, by constantly training, what you're doing is you're making your immune system more readily available, versus it just being sitting there and doing nothing. It's always on and it's always available for you. So it's much quicker to muster up a response versus if you were not exercising routinely. Now, one thing we should say here is that this increase in the circulation of immune components while you're working out is a transient effect. So what that means is, as you work out, the number of these cells and antibodies increases. But when you stop working out over a certain amount of time, it decreases. Now, how soon does that decrease happen? Usually within hours to days. That's why routine working out is so important, because it almost has like a summation effect. It adds up these kind of effects, and now you always have an elevated level of circulating immune components within your blood. So you're always more ready to fight an infection if it were to happen. Interestingly, to support that kind of discoveries, there were a lot of kind of comparative studies that were done in individuals, and what scientists took, and there's a lot of different discoveries, and we'll share some of them in the links in the description of this video, so you can actually read some of the papers that talk about this. But what these kind of comparative studies have done is they took individuals about equal age and so, and they tested many different ages and different both male and females. And what they compared to is people that are more sedentary to those that are more active. And they kind of tracked them for months to sometimes years. And what they looked for is how often did they get sick during these months to years, and how quickly they recovered. And what they found is that people that routinely exercise would get quite significantly less sick than those that didn't. And also, if they were to get sick, they recovered much quicker than those people that were more sedentary. So the idea is that routine exercising significantly improves the availability of your immune system. So that's the first major benefit of exercising, and that's the first relationship between that and your improved immune performance. Another way that routine exercising improves your immune health is by decreasing your systemic inflammation. Now, what does that mean? To answer that question, let's first understand what inflammation is. Inflammation is a natural part of the immune response. So let's imagine that you cut your finger. When you cut your finger, let's say you get a little bit infected. When it gets infected, your body needs to kind of get the immune system going to fight off that infection. So how does it do that? How does it recruit all those cells like macrophages, neutrophils, cytotoxic T cells that I mentioned earlier in the video? How does it recruit it specifically to that finger that got infected? And one way it does it is by something known as cytokines. Now, cytokines are signaling molecules. These signaling molecules signal, that's their job, they travel through your body and they signal and activate these cells that I mentioned and recruit them to the site of the infection. But in the process of their signaling, their other kind of function, if you will, is to also cause inflammation. So your finger, the source of infection, the source of cut, gets a little bit inflamed, right? And eventually, as the immune system does its job, as the cytokines have now signaled and recruited those immune components, that inflammation goes down and you recover. So localized inflammation, like at the site of the cut, the site of infection, is a good thing. It's a part of a natural immune process. Systemic inflammation, on the other hand, is not such a good thing. Systemic inflammation means that your whole body is basically has an increased level of these cytokines that are signaling and traveling through your body. So why does that happen? Well, it can happen in people with autoimmune disorder. It can also happen with people that have metabolic conditions, for example, such as you can say diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically, insulin resistance, certain cardiovascular diseases, high body fat content, for example, obesity. All of these components can increase systemic inflammation. Why does it happen? Well, it probably happens because your body sees these conditions as unnatural, and it tries to get an immune response against itself to keep those things down. And obviously that is causing an increase in these cytokines that are signaling and recruiting the immune components. And that increases your systemic inflammation, so chronic inflammation. So that's a very kind of a negative thing that happens with people with these type of conditions. Now, what's interesting here is that people that are high risk for COVID-19 are those that have the same conditions. So, for example, insulin resistance, diabetes, obesity, all of these people are also at high risk for severe complications, potentially even death from COVID-19. So now there's a certain relationship between people like cytokine or increased inflammation within the body, so chronic inflammation, and also COVID-19. So let's talk a little bit more about it because it's a very interesting topic as well. So those individuals with these pre-existing conditions that we described earlier, if they get infected with SARS-CoV-2 and develop COVID-19 disease, often they experience something known as cytokine storm. Now, before we get into what that is, that cytokine storm can lead to very severe complications and death. Now, what is cytokine storm? Well, to answer that question, let's kind of examine a little bit the function of the virus when it enters your body. When the virus gets into your body, it starts infecting your cells. A lot in the lungs, it can also be in your gut, but it's infecting cells throughout. As it's infecting your cells, it's producing more copies of itself, the virus. As it's producing more copies of itself, it kills the cell it infected and infects the neighboring cells. Produces more copies, kills the cell, infects the neighboring cell, and that process is repeated. As your cells are getting killed off, your body sees this as a very drastic event and it needs to fight that. And one way of fighting it is through your immune system. So it starts signaling to your immune system to get activated. So how does the immune system get signaled? Through the cytokines. We remember this. So what happens is, in those individuals that already have elevated cytokine numbers within their bodies, right? Those with systemic inflammation. Now that you get further cytokine production, the amount of cytokines produced all of a sudden becomes so much, so strong that it can completely shut down your body. And often that shuts down your breathing, shuts down your metabolism, your cognitive functions get impaired, and can even lead to death. And that is what's known as cytokine storm. So those people that already have elevated numbers of cytokines or systemic inflammation that we talked about earlier, those are high risk for severe complications when further cytokines are produced as a natural component of the immune system. So how do we keep our number of cytokines down? Well, one way is through routine training. And this is, again, that huge benefit that we're trying to get to. Routine training drops the number of cytokines that are constantly traveling with, traveling, you can say, within your body. So your systemic inflammation is much lower compared to those people that do not train or do not exercise. And that difference could be almost fourfold. So those people that are more inactive, that do not train, their amount of systemic inflammation and blood cytokine numbers are sometimes over fourfold more than of those people that routinely train. So whether you're a healthy person or even maybe you're a person with those pre-existing conditions that we mentioned earlier, by routinely exercising, you're keeping the number of your cytokines down, your systemic inflammation down, and even if you were to get infected with SARS-CoV-2 and develop COVID-19, you will hopefully not experience that cytokine storm and will not develop these severe complications because you're healthy and fit through kind of routine exercising. So that is the second benefit. It's a huge benefit of training, is by dropping the level of kind of systemic inflammation. And this applies to whether you're healthy or you have certain metabolic conditions. That routine exercise will definitely help you. So what are the main points that we want you guys to consider here? There are two main benefits to working out when it comes to your immune health. One is improved circulation or increased circulation of your immune components. So that way, if these immune components encounter a bacteria or virus along their way, they're going to be quicker to destroy it, and therefore you won't get sick or will recover much quicker. That's the first benefit. The second benefit, and very important benefit specifically when it comes to SARS-CoV-2, but not only, is that also by routinely exercising, you're keeping your inflammation down, so systemic inflammation down, number of cytokines down, and therefore you're less likely to develop severe complications if you were to get infected with SARS-CoV-2. Now, these are only two benefits that we discussed here. There's other benefits of immune health and exercising. Some could be, for example, vaccination. Now, there's been some studies that have shown that when you get a vaccine, such as a flu vaccine, those individuals that routinely train get a better response to the vaccine than those that don't. So that could be another benefit. Also, aging. Aging, as people get older, their immune response drops. And one way to kind of decrease the rate of that drop is by routine training again. So there's so many benefits to exercising when it comes to immune health, but there's even more benefits to other systems as well. Cardiovascular benefits, of course, metabolic benefits, and of course, psychological benefits. So exercising is a crucial component of your health, guys. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down it is. Please scroll and check out some other videos on this channel. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Also, don't forget to tell your friends, your family about this channel. We really want to grow it. We want to reach out to more people and keep them informed about science and some cool topics that we're going to cover here. As usual, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in future videos, and get out there and exercise.